So about 2 months ago, I walked outside after a hailstorm and there was a hole in the cover of my speedometer and nothing worked anymore. No gas gauge, no revs, anything. So I decided it was time for a new one. After doing some research, an OEM one was about $20 more than this one from SIP Scooter Shop that had more features. So I decided I'd take the plunge. After all of the accessories and everything I needed, shipping, it was about $370 and took about a month to get here. Here's everything that was in the box. I got the speedometer, I got the digital speed sensor, I got the external oil temperature sensor, the included wiring harness, and then I needed a blinker switch because mine had been acting up. And here's everything that came in the box with the speedometer, just a bunch of extra wires, and then the instruction manual. Here's just a little walk around of the scooter. It's a 2008 GTS 250. I think this speedometer fits a bunch of different models. There's just some slightly different connections. And then here's the speedometer. It doesn't look like it's that bad, but as you can see, absolutely nothing turns on. The headlight works, the scooter turns on, but the blinkers don't work, and I can't tell how much gas I have or how fast I'm going. So to get started, you got to take this little Piaggio badge off. Make sure you put a finger or a rag behind the screwdriver or you'll scratch your paint. As you can see, I've done it before. These little connectors are super easy to pop off. If you don't have a light down there, then you can just pull the cover off, no connector needed. And then after you take off these little Allen screws, there's just two little connectors right there. I've broken one off that side. Here's how to not break them off. You kind of got to pick up the one on the inside, twist it around, and then wiggle it. If you feel any resistance, stop. They break so easily, but I haven't broken that one yet. And then for the headlight assembly, you've got three screws, one under the buttons on the right-hand side, one right in the middle under the headlight, and then one under the buttons on the left-hand side as well. I did have to film this next part in portrait mode, so it's not going to come across that great on video, but it's the best I could do. This part is always very nerve-wracking. As you can see, I've broken this thing before. It's very easy to do, but it's also not too bad to get it off without breaking anything, as long as you're patient. There's clips on either side right next to the brake reservoirs. Pull those off, and then it's just a lot of wiggling, a lot of kind of shaking, trying not to break anything. You'll go a little bit at a time. You'll probably have to pull on those clips again, but just pull up from the middle and out, and eventually that main clip will give. And then you've got another one of those connectors right there. And I cut the video, but there will be one more headlight connector that's just a simple 3-pin. After the headlight side is off, you've got to take off the speedometer side. It's just two long screws on the top, two short screws on the bottom. It's very important you don't get those mixed up. I'll remind you later. They're a little hard to get to, but with a little moving around of the wires, you'll be able to get to it. So on my scooter, there's 5 electrical connectors along with the speedometer cable and the main speedometer harness. After you get those off, this part is free, and there's 4 screws holding on the speedometer. After you have all those 4 screws out, you just kind of push in each corner. It's a pretty tight fit in there, but it'll eventually give, and then that part's free, and you can put the new one in. At this point, the scooter's about as taken apart as it's going to be, so this is when I decided to put on the external speed sensor and the oil temperature sensor. The speed sensor was pretty easy because you can use the existing speedometer line and just tape it to that and run it up, but make sure you follow the instructions. If you don't put on the bracket first, you have to chase it again, which is what I did. And then here's the oil temperature sensor. You do have to take off the glove box, which is a little annoying, but not too bad. And then you can just run it straight down the body, and it goes towards the back of the engine. So once you've run those wires, here's what it looks like with the wiring harness attached. You can see one side is going to the old main harness, and then this one plugs into the new speedometer. Super easy plug. Just make sure you've got a really good solid connection on there, and just tuck everything out of the way as best you can. I always make sure I test things before I get everything put back together because I almost always make a mistake. This time, luckily, didn't. It was just such an easy install that everything worked right when I turned it on. Just testing high beams, blinkers, everything like that. Since everything worked, it's time to start putting it back together. So at this point, the headlight's back on, the front cover's back on, and the mirror caps are back on. I peeled off this plastic and then I turned everything on to do a final check before I got out the instruction book and configured everything. Just made sure, again, the blinkers, the horn, everything works. High beams. Just did a quick walk around, make sure I didn't forget to put anything back on the moped. And you can see it's looking like the revs are a little high right now. That's just because it's not configured properly. And this is with the white backlight and it's still showing kilometers per hour. But pretty good sign that everything's working. And here it is after it's all configured. You can see the security light is blinking just like the OEM one does. And I decided to go with the red background. You can see the oil pressure light turns off right after you turn the moped on. Everything's super bright. I have it set to where the revs are on the analog side and the mile per hour will read that digital number down on the bottom. Overall, pretty impressed. It's very bright. It was a pretty easy install, just some basic tools like screwdrivers and Allen wrenches. And the only thing that wasn't included that I ended up using was some double-sided tape. But if you don't have the relays that I happen to have, then you won't need it. But that's pretty much everything. Thank you for watching.